right. So, hey, welcome everyone. My name is Kristen Morales. I'm a high school math teacher as well as the tech coach for my high school. Today, we're going to be talking about HyperDocs to get you organized and ready to engage students. I put the link for my slideshow in the chat. It's also posted on the At a Glance. And then I also have it on my teacher website, bit.ly/techie-teacher, where I have this presentation along with a lot of other presentations I've done if you're so interested in looking at that. So I want to take a look. Here's a picture of my classroom in fall of 2019 and then fall of 2020. I've been using computers or Chromebooks in my classrooms for years. I have my master's degree in educational technology. So we've all have used Chromebooks or technology in our classroom, but the way we use it right now looks different. I was just telling Andrea, for people who are still coming in, my school, we left for COVID on March 13th, 2020, and we're still at home. Okay, so we really had to transition. All of us had that time last spring where, we had a little flexibility with the grades and whatnot, but then we started this school year having to come up with a plan on how are we truly going to teach online in a digital environment. And one thing I kept in the back of my mind is the students haven't changed. Okay, they're still the same kids. Okay, so everything that you've ever done as a teacher is still in your tool belt. And as I mentioned, I'm a tech coach. Some of the teachers that at my school felt totally lost. They felt like, they just lost. And I said, let's not forget, you've been teaching 15 years or 18 years or 20 years, and all those great, fabulous things that you've done, you can probably find a way to do that digitally as well. And along the way, find some new tricks and tools and tips that will make it more exciting, fun, and for yourself. So one of the biggest things that teachers at my site were struggling with was organization. And I told them, hey, get organized with a daily HyperDoc. Now, a daily HyperDoc is not just going to be organizing for you, but it's going to be a way to get organized for your students. And so what I encourage them to do, and what I do every day, is I use a daily HyperDoc. Now, for those of you who know what a HyperDoc is and have visited the HyperDocs.co website, maybe you've heard, Lisa Highfill or Kelly Hilton speak, HyperDocs can be come in all different shapes and forms in terms of a document, a Google slide, et cetera, et cetera. And if you want to see more of those in-depth HyperDocs, take a look at that link down at the bottom of that slide at hyperdocs.co. But what I did is I took the basic explore, explain, apply HyperDoc, and I kind of took a twist on it. And I turned that into a daily HyperDoc with links and also kind of used it as my roadmap. And what I really wanted to do for my students, as well as for myself, is get organized, right? And it's kind of like, when you were in teaching school and maybe even still use it, kind of your old school lesson planning paper. You'd make those little one sheet of paper that says, okay, here's going to be my warm up. Here's the main lesson. Here's my homework, whatever it's going to be. I kind of think of my HyperDoc like that, where I lay out a HyperDoc for every single day for the unit. And then I start plugging in resources that I'm going to use. And by the time I'm done, it looks something like the one you're looking right here. And I'll tell you on the next slide, kind of some different activities you can do for the explore, the explain, and the apply section. But what it becomes for students, it becomes your agenda. I know all of us have been teaching for years. I bet you had on your whiteboard your daily agenda, didn't you? So that when students walk through the door, they knew what to expect. Well, in an online world, the kids are still the same kids. They still need that agenda. And that's kind of what I think of this as. And my students, I was doing this last spring with Google Classroom, where I had my daily HyperDoc. And then my school switched to Canvas, and now I'm doing the daily HyperDoc in Canvas. It doesn't matter what your LMS is. I organize mine by date. So the kid goes to the date, and then they go to the HyperDoc. And in one page, they see everything they're going to do that day. So that if a kid's absent, if a parent wants to know, if one of your administrators want to know, anybody who wants to know what you're doing, there it is. That's your day. And as a general rule of thumb, if it doesn't fit on one page, you're doing too much. Okay. It better just be that much, because otherwise it's too long and it's not going to fit. So students know what to expect. You can post it in your LMS. You can make announcements too. Like this was one during finals week and we had a schedule change. So I put it in there. Okay. So that's any type of little thing that you normally would write on your board. You put it in there, but it's more than that. All the links to activities you're going to do are going to be put here. So for example, I had links to Padlets where my students are going to post their What's Up Weekly. That's a activity I'll tell you about a little bit later in the session. But I had my links to my Padlet in there. I had my warm up there. They were going to do a shared Google slideshow. I had the link to the shared Google slideshow there. They had a review document. The link for that was in there. So all of those links to the activities you're going to do, you put them in the HyperDoc so that it's in a one-stop shop for you and your students. So what kind of activities can you do? Well, the list is endless. I'm sure you guys have your regular go-to activities that you do. So I'm going to tell you some of my regular go-to activities. I like to think of the explore section. That's kind of like a warm up. Like I said, I'm a math teacher, so we do warm ups. But the explore is a way to kind of explore the content. And I typically put like a YouTube video there, maybe an Edpuzzle. I love Quizizz to kind of just get them going with the game, see what they know, do a little formative assessment. Since I teach math, I'll put like a GeoGebra link up there. Maybe if you teach, English or social studies, maybe you want to put just an article that you want them to read. Maybe it's a website, maybe it's a Quizlet flashcard. All of those things you can put in any section, but I think those are great things to put in the explore section. And I gave you some ideas about, how you can put the task. And I like to, on the explore side, tell the kids what it is. And then where it says your task, tell them what to do with it so that they know, okay, here's the link and here's what I'm supposed to do with it. In the explain portion, pretty much every week I have a Nearpod lesson or a Pear Deck lesson. I still do direct teaching and note taking. They still lead whole class sessions on doing math problems. And yes, my students still use paper. Yes, we do. I'm sorry, you need to do that in math. You can't digitize everything. I do have some colleagues that have tried to digitize everything and did a Pear Deck every single day. And then they heard back from parents, like, my kid doesn't have an Apple Pen. My kid doesn't have a stylus, and trying to do all of their math problems on a trackpad, it doesn't always work. Okay, so yeah, you got to do a little bit of both. I do use Nearpod, but we do paper as well, right? You can put an essay prompt in that section. I do a Desmos activity. Maybe you do a fabulous EduProtocol activity, but you have that at the chunk of your lesson in the explain portion. And then for apply, after I feel like, okay, it's time for you students to show me what you know, one of my very most favorite things to do is Jamboard. I don't think I could have made it this year without Jamboard because, and I'll show you some examples. I do shared Jamboards like at least once a week. Padlet's a place for students to post their work. Shared Google slideshows where we all get the whole class jumping on a slideshow and everybody putting their ideas. Quizizz, Flipgrid, Google Form Quiz, Powtoon, all of those are great things that you can put in a HyperDoc. So here's what HyperDoc I used last week. Just again, later in my slideshow, I have a link and I'm going to talk about how you can package all of this in a Google slideshow calendar. But if you just look at this, you can see like the kids right at the start of class, we're going to click on a GeoGebra link and investigate it. I had their problem set for their test review. And they were all going to prepare the answers for the test review in Zoom breakout rooms on a Google Jamboard. So they have the links to their Jamboard there. And I like putting the links to the Jamboard or the Google slideshow right here, because then after class, all the answers are there. So they can go back and revisit the answers. They don't need to find it. It's there, right? And here's a tip. When you're doing a Jamboard before class, have it view only. As soon as class starts, change it to edit. Then the students edit. And then at the end of class, change it back to view. Because that way there's, not that any of us have any smart aleck kids, but we might, so smart aleck kid can't go back at midnight and put some inappropriate image on your Jamboard. Okay. But I like the Jamboard there. Now, in a little while, I'm going to talk about my digital notebook, but anything I want them to put in my digital notebook, I always put a little picture of the digital notebook. So they're like, yep, this goes in the notebook. So it really helps organize what they need to do and where they need to put it. And some of these links are directly on my HyperDoc, but if it's part of a bigger assignment, like maybe a notebook or a slideshow, those might be separate in your LMS, like Google Classroom or Canvas. So that's where I'm telling you, I kind of adapted the traditional idea of a HyperDoc to work in conjunction with my learning management system, which now is Canvas, but in the spring I was using Google Classroom.
Are they all adding to their own individual notebook, or is it a class notebook?
Yeah, I'll show you, and that's going to come a little bit later, but yeah, I give them their own copy. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So, and hold on. If you want to do a bigger HyperDoc, I have some examples here of larger HyperDocs that I would do for a unit. Again, on HyperDocs website, hyperdocs.co, they have tons of great examples. And if you want to do a bigger HyperDoc, again, I have links right here. If you go on to either one of these links, like I believe it's this one. So like here's my volume. This is one more for a unit. Okay, so that's when I was doing ones for the whole unit last spring. And if you, last spring too, I had my HyperDocs looking a little bit different because I wasn't using a weekly notebook. I was collecting work daily and I was having them like take pictures and write explanation in little boxes. So it kind of depends on how you want to set it up. I found it easier for myself to kind of collect work that kind of weekly as opposed to daily, or if I was going to do it daily, put it in some other location. But if you wanted to collect it right here on your HyperDoc, you could put a 1-by-1 table. And when they type in that little box, post a picture or whatever in that box, it'll grow. So, oops, here we go. So just a couple different examples for you guys. And I have one here with parallel lines and transversals that you can go ahead and take a look at. It's all hyperlinked in the document. So it kind of gets you a feel for what is a HyperDoc and the types of things you can put in there. As I mentioned before, the possibilities are endless. But some of my favorite tools I'm going to show you in a minute, you really need to figure out what is your learning objective. Let's choose the right tool for your learning objective, whatever that is. I mean, I wouldn't just choose the tech just to use it. I would choose it to fit your learning goal. So here's like literally some of my favorite tools that I use all the time. Whether like one of my ones I just mentioned, Quizizz. I love Quizizz fast-paced game. Kids need to have some fun in class. And so Quizizz is a way with little memes and power-ups for you to get some formative assessment data and just see how they're doing. And it's a lot more fun to do it that way than to say, hey, let's do 20 math problems together, which we still do, but not all the time because that gets boring. Another one, whether it be Kahoot, Quizizz, some sort of gaming platform, I would incorporate at least once a week into your class because it's fun and you get kids engaged, right? Once a week, I incorporate either a Pear Deck or a Nearpod because I want, again, that interactivity where I can monitor, are the students engaged with what I'm talking about? And Pear Deck and Nearpod would be a way to do that. Again, just give them the link to your Pear Deck or Nearpod at the beginning of the session, and then they're engaged and you can monitor literally what they're doing throughout the whole lesson. I also, of course, because I'm a math teacher, love Desmos. Desmos is another way for you to engage all your students. And I really also use quite a bit Padlet because it's like a digital bulletin board for my students. So let's take a look at just, once you have your HyperDoc built, what does it look like? What are the activities? So really one of my go-to activities this semester and so far, well, I guess last semester and this semester so far this year is just using Zoom breakout rooms and Google Jamboard or collaborative Google slide deck. So, I've always had students working in groups. So that's a picture of my class when we were in person. They always sat in groups of 4 students. So how do you do that in the digital environment? Well, I just set up my Zoom breakout rooms and I make a Jamboard or a Google slide deck, but I use Jamboard more often because I like for Jamboard, the drawing tool for math is better. It's just easy to grab the pen and draw right on the Jamboard. But I'll make, if I want 10 breakout rooms, then I make 10 Jamboard slides. And I have examples of my Jamboards. And the kids know if you go to Zoom breakout room number 8, then you go to Jamboard slide number 8, and I prepare it to match up what we're talking about during the explain portion in class. And then it gives them a chance to apply their knowledge so that each group is going to prepare the answers on their Jamboard. And then that'll take maybe, 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, however long you want it to be. And then we come back as a whole class and students unmute themselves and they're the teachers. They tell the solutions to the class. So I do that all the time with Jamboard, and I match it up with a problem set I'm going to do. And you could do that in any discipline. Maybe if you're an English teacher, each Jamboard maybe has a different passage from the article or the piece of literature that you're reading, and you want them to analyze it. Or maybe each Jamboard slide has a different character, and the groups have to discuss character traits or character analysis. But it's jigsawing. It's jigsawing your lesson, having the kids prepare their portion and then put it on the Jamboard. And like I said, the Jamboard stays on the Google Doc, on the HyperDoc. So later on, other kids can revisit it at any time to see what their classmates said to get the knowledge that was created. Here's another example. I just pulled this up because now what I'm seeing is some of my students actually do have a Surface Pro or an iPad. So like, here's a picture of a student who used their Surface Pro and they did their work digitally. But some kids are still taking pictures of their paper and putting it in. And some people just write with the Jamboard pen. So that's why I like Jamboard, because you can have the pen, the typing tool, the sticky note, or they can import a picture of their literally handwritten work on paper. So all of those tools are available. Another thing I really like is Padlet, because Padlet allows me to share student work and for them to see each other's work. And I just want to show you a quick, Padlet. If you're teaching volume, this is my volume HyperDoc. Hey, let's make a cake and let's have your cake be different shapes, not just rectangles. Let's maybe get some triangular prisms on there. Let's get some cones on there. Let's get some spheres. And now students are posting their work for everyone to see. And the quality goes way, way up. And I've been using Padlet for years to do this type of work, but it's really easy in class for you to say, okay, guys, we just learned about volume. I'm going to give you 15 minutes or however long it is to go design your own cake. And by, 11 o'clock, I want everybody to be posted on the Padlet so that you guys can see what your classmates are doing and talk about it. And then they unmute themselves and they say, hey, here's my work. So this is another example of how I could use technology, both in a classroom setting, which I've used that for years in a classroom setting, but in an online environment. I have some other examples here for you guys to take a look at. I'm not going to go over all of them, but just different ways that you can get the students showing their work. And that's what I'm a big advocate for. Although, like I said, I'm still doing a lot of direct teaching as well, but it's always is backed up by an opportunity for students to showcase their learning. So once you have your daily HyperDoc, that alone, I'll tell you right there, that alone is going to get you organized. You just make a HyperDoc for every day, and then you start planning your lessons. When you find your links, when you find your activities, you're planning your unit, you put them in the day that you think they're going to work on the daily HyperDoc. But where do all those HyperDocs go? Do they stay in your drive? They could, and they will, but let's put them in a calendar. Okay, so my next thing is weekly notebooks and monthly calendars. So here's two other pieces of organization that have really, really helped out this year. So someone asked earlier, did I give a class notebook or was each student get their notebook? Each student gets their notebook. It's just a Google slideshow template. So if you click on this here, this is the Google slideshow template. So I think I got it right here. Every kid, and you can customize it. If you want to come here and change the master, you can change the front cover. And this has a day, one slide for every week. Now you can put whatever you want in there. Maybe you want the students to type a summary of what they learned. Maybe you want them to respond to an article. You can put an article link in there and then they can type about it. For me, in math, the reason why I really needed this notebook is because we do a lot of math problems and I didn't want to have to grade it every single day. I did that last spring. And it got so tiring. Like, oh my God, I had way, way too much to grade. So I'm like, you know what? When school starts this fall, I'm not going to, I never did that before. I used to have a notebook I'd collect like once every couple of weeks. Why am I doing that now? Okay, so then I switched to the digital notebook. So they can put in there really whatever you want them to put in there. And for math teachers in particular, I can have them put a screenshot of a Desmos. I can have them put a picture of their handwritten work. I could have them put a summary of what they learned in GeoGebra. So every Friday, I have them turn in their weekly notebook. So all I do is just make a copy for each kid. And I'll be, I will tell them at the top of that page, I'll pre-type what I want on there. So kids know every Friday, turn your notebook in. And on my HyperDocs, I've customized mine, but on the HyperDocs, I put a little picture of the notebook. So they know, okay, this is a thing that needs to go in the notebook. Okay, this is a thing that needs to go in the notebook. So like if you went back to this HyperDoc, you can see it's real small right there, but there's a picture of my pre-calc notebook cover. So whenever my students see that, they know, oh, that's going in the notebook. I mean, granted, I wrote it there for them, but it's always good to have some visual icons as well. So what's it look like? Well, it could be just like this. Here's just some regular old notes. And like I said, we still do take regular old notes in math in combination with a bunch of other activities. So this is how I can see their notes. I have some students who actually scan their stuff in and there you go. They have their scan notes on a scanner. Here's a student just doing their work and giving me pictures of it. I got another student now who's using his iPad. So in my HyperDocs, and this has been a heavy lift for a lot of teachers this year, taking your content and digitizing it and making it available to students. I think this year I've really refined a lot of my content and I'm happy for all the work I put in because now I know I'm ready. Everything's ready. I was pretty good last year, but I'm going to be stellar next year. I'm telling you, right? Because now it's digitized and it's not just to make it available to them to view, but to work on. Look at this. A kid is actually pulling it up from the HyperDoc and he's using his stylus on his iPad. So I'm saying once you give the content to the students, it gives them the opportunity to interact with it in the way that they have the technology to interact with it. And of course, I love the summary at my end of my notebook. Kids write me the darndest things like, Miss Morales, this week was really hard and I barely made it. Can I come to intervention? And I'm like, yes, you can. Or maybe they'll say something like, hey, I got really good this week and I got a 12 out of 12 on the test. Sometimes I just like to hear what they say. And I think it's important. And any of you who ever taught Avid, which I used to teach Avid, you know how important those summaries are. Okay, so use the summary section in your notebook. So once I have my daily HyperDocs, I got my weekly notebooks, here's my work of art. Here's my masterpiece, man, for the whole year is my online calendar. Now, Slides Mania has a ton of online calendars, and I just went to Slides Mania and I took one of theirs and I kind of customized it for what I needed. And if you guys click on up here where it says Morales geometry example, you can actually see the live calendar, which is like, here's my live calendar. Just this morning, I was working on pre-calculus. And what I'll start to do on my live calendar is I just start typing up, okay, chapter 6, day number 14, HyperDoc. Chapter 6, day 15, HyperDoc. Chapter 6, day 16, HyperDoc. And you can see I don't have anything planned yet for day 17, 18, 19, 20. I know those days are going to come. I have no idea what I'm doing yet, but I have a place to put it. I have a place to lay down my ideas. So what I'll do is I'll start laying down my ideas, and then I'll build my HyperDoc, right? So that I can see like, what is this going to be like? So for example, like I click right here, next week, I started building this morning. Oh, my kids are going to do trig reps, which by the way, if you want to know about math reps, head on over today. There's a math reps session with Lisa Nowakowski, the new Edu Protocol math book coming out that my trig reps are in. Well, it's back. It's time for trig reps again in pre-calc. So they got their trig reps packet. They're going to do a GeoGebra reference angle. I got a couple, activities we're going to do, the unit circle, degrees table, and they're going to put it in their notebook. Okay, and I might add more to that. I might change it. It's all digital, so I can change it by the day. But I guess what I'm saying is this helps you stay organized and it helps a student stay organized. But here's the real beauty. Don't you have parents that want to know what you're doing? Here you go. Parents can't get into Google Classroom. Yeah, they get the summary, but they can't get in there. In Canvas, although a lot of my parents have learned how to become a Canvas observer, a lot of them are not in Canvas. Okay, and then what about the counselors? Are your counselors in every single one of your Canvas classes? Are they a member? What about your EL support teachers? What about your AVID support teachers? What about your SPED case carriers? Are they in all your classes? No, they're not. Okay, but what can you give them? You give them the calendar. Okay, and the calendar has all the HyperDocs in it. So any of those stakeholders like parents, counselors, support teachers who want to know what you're doing, you give them your calendar, right? So they have every single detailed everything you need. Furthermore, what about your co-teachers that you collaborate with? I'll see sometimes in the morning, I'll be in here and I'll see my friend on my calendar, just looking at it like, oh, what's Kristen doing today? And then I'll click on my HyperDoc and there they are too. Okay, so you make this stuff available to all the stakeholders by putting it in the calendar. And then of course, bonus round, you post it on your school website so anybody who ever wants to look at it can. And you can next year have it all. It's all organized for you and for everyone. So I highly recommend you taking those individual HyperDocs and then hyperlinking them into your calendar. So all of this has made me feel supremely organized. okay, in a very disorganized time when a lot of teachers have felt overwhelmed, oversaturated with a whole sea of, stuff. HyperDocs is a way for you to get organized, organize your thoughts, organize your units, organize your year, and put it all together with your calendar. Last thing I want to say, and I'll probably let you guys out early for lunch. I know all students want to hear that. We're going early for lunch. Yeah. Is make sure you connect with your students. Whatever system you have, plan time every week to learn about them. And I do that. I mean, just a time to know, who are you? So I came up with this. I call it What's Up. It's What's Up Weekly. Okay. And it's just a slideshow that I make at the beginning of the semester. I think this is the link to my one for first semester. And I put these instructions on the first slide. It looks like a beach, but it's just a blank slideshow with a date. And then every single Monday, because we have asynchronous Mondays, that's what they have to do on Mondays, is they got to prepare their slide. And kids, and then they post it on the class Padlet, and the class Padlet looks something like this. And so later in the week, like on Thursday or Friday, I just say, what's up? Who wants to share? And then students tell me the darndest things. They'll say, oh, we're fostering puppies. My family's fostering puppies. I'm like, oh, really? And I say, tell me about that. And then I got another kid. He's got his fantasy football league. Every week he's posting about his fantasy football league, telling me what's going on. I have other kids. My one kid, Mary, right there. Do you notice she's doing a back bend? She's doing yoga on a paddleboard. Okay, that girl is athletic, man. She is always posted on her paddleboard. She's surfing. She's doing all this stuff. I mean, I'm getting to know her. I've actually had students on What's Up Weekly tell me, oh, my mom got tested and got positive for COVID. And then I'm like, oh, and I talked to that kid. So kids tell me some stuff that they're doing. And then when we're doing math, I can bring it up. I'm like, oh, like that YouTube video, right? Or I had a kid who told me he loves Among Us. And then when he turns his camera off, I'll be like, Andrea, are you among us? Are you here? They'll turn their camera right back on. Like, oh, so she just remembered we need to be among us. So there's what I got for you guys. Connect with your students, provide that daily HyperDoc. It's a roadmap for you, for your students, their parents, counselors, and package it all up in a monthly calendar. And if you guys have questions, I would love to answer them. And of course, this presentation and a lot of other presentations I do are on my website at bit.ly/techieteacher.
Thanks, Kristen. This was great. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, I think.